Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something really special. We're analyzing how football serves as a profound mirror of the human experience. We're going to look way beyond what happens on the pitch for 90 minutes and really examine the deep, intertwining narratives that shape the sport's greatest players and institutions. Okay, let's kick things off with a question that perfectly frames this forgotten history between two of the sport's absolute biggest clubs. It totally challenges our modern assumptions about how rivalries are actually formed. Can a bitter rivalry really be born from profound generosity? To make sense of these wildly different eras and players, we're going to break this explainer down into a thematic triptych. We'll be exploring three core emotional pillars of the sport: tragedy and brotherhood, the weight of greatness, and finally, the tiger mentality. Let's jump right into Act 1, tragedy and brotherhood. The foundation is human. We'll be looking at how one of modern football's fiercest rivalries was actually forged in the fires of a devastating shared tragedy. So picture this. It's 1957. Matt Busby's young Manchester United side, often called the Busby Babes, is facing off against the unstoppable, wealthy empire of Real Madrid in the European Cup. Now, Real Madrid ended up winning the tie 5-3 on aggregate, which, was pretty much expected at the time. But here's the twist. Club president Santiago Bernabeu was so captivated by the young English squad's fearless attacking style that he actually pulled Matt Busby aside and offered him a job right then and there. Busby politely declined, but a really deep mutual respect was born. Tragically, the high of that semi-final clash would be incredibly short-lived. Just 10 months later, in 1958, the Munich air disaster happened. A plane crashed in the slush and snow, killing 23 people, including 8 of Busby's brilliant young players. It was a tragedy that literally shattered the football worlds, and it forced a completely broken Manchester United into a grueling, decade-long rebuild. Now, how Real Madrid responded to this is absolutely unprecedented. They didn't just send their condolences and grief from afar, they practically sustained Manchester United financially and competitively. Bernabeu went as far as offering to loan them Alfredo Di Stefano, who was the best player in the world at the time, though the English FA shockingly blocked it. He sold Champions of Honor memorial pennants in Spain to raise funds. And most incredibly, he absorbed all the costs for 5 crucial fundraising friendlies. Real Madrid essentially taught this young, broken team how to play European football again. And they did it without expecting a single thing in return. Fast forward a decade to 1968, when Manchester United finally achieved their absolute dream and actually beat Real Madrid in the semifinal on their way to lifting the European Cup. Bernabeu's gracious reaction was captured perfectly. He said, "If it had to be anyone, then I am glad it was them." I mean, wow. It just proves that this relationship was built entirely on genuine, unselfish brotherhood. All right, moving on to Act 2, the weight of greatness. Carrying the world. Let's see how this builds into the immense psychological and sometimes political weight placed squarely on the shoulders of individual legends. We're keeping things completely objective here, but we have to note that this specific 1986 World Cup match served as a profound metaphor for national conflict. It was shaped heavily by the geopolitical tensions following the Falklands/Malvinas War. When these two teams stepped onto the pitch, it was no longer just a game of football. It was literally the heavy burden of national identity converging for 90 minutes. The micro-narrative of that legendary game is just fascinating. You've got Argentine coach Carlos Bilardo's intense obsessions and superstitions playing out in the background, but the match itself was defined entirely by one man, Diego Maradona. Those 91 minutes encapsulated the ethical implications of his infamous hand of God deceit, immediately followed up by the sheer aesthetic brilliance of the goal of the century. It was a total distillation of national identity and cunning. Yet what's really amazing is how that bitter history eventually transformed into modern mutual respect between former rivals on that pitch, like Jorge Valdano and Gary Lineker. Now, we see a sharp emotional contrast with another legend carrying the weight of a nation, Zinedine Zidane. In 1998, he soared to the highest of highs on home soil, scoring 2 incredible headed goals to win the World Cup for France. But by 2006, that immense pressure cooker ends his national career in the lowest of lows, a shocking red card headbutt after a personal insult from Marco Materazzi. It is the ultimate example of how the weight of greatness can lead to unparalleled glory or absolute tragedy. Focusing back on his 1998 triumph for a second, remember that Zidane was a playmaker. He really wasn't known for his aerial ability at all, but his coach, Aimé Jacquet, recognized the truth behind those goals. Jacquet pointed out that heading wasn't his forte, but he was fiercely determined to get to those corners, and he did. That victory wasn't born of natural heading talent. It was born of sheer, unstoppable mental drive. Let's shift gears a bit to a very different kind of immense weight. 1.35 billion euros.
Let that number sink in for a second. That staggering figure represents Barcelona's crippling debt, an insurmountable financial reality that set the absolute perfect stage for our next story about the weight of greatness. We're moving from international pressure directly into modern club economics.
This massive financial mismanagement forced out a living legend. Lionel Messi desperately wanted to stay at Barcelona. Even accepting a 50% pay cut couldn't save his career there, against strict La Liga wage limits. He literally cried at his farewell press conference while his stunned teammates watched. The club simply could not register him without mortgaging their entire future to a massive CVC television deal, which they flat out refused to do. We just look at the sheer economic weight of one man. Despite his initial personal struggles adapting to Paris and dealing with linguistic barriers in the dressing room, Messi's arrival instantly altered the financial and cultural gravity of French football. I mean, PSG saw a massive 15 to 20% revenue increase almost overnight. They sold over 1 million shirts, and 40% of those were Messi's. They gained 15 million new social media followers and instantly secured over 10 new major sponsorships. He was carrying an entire commercial empire on his back just by changing his jersey. All right, let's roll right into Act 3, the tiger mentality, refusal to surrender. Let's see how all of this builds into the ultimate psychological resilience required to survive and conquer the beautiful game. So, the tiger mentality. This defines the unshakable belief that an individual can overcome any obstacle and emerge victorious, regardless of the circumstances. It's all about confronting challenges head-on, embracing the risks, and possessing a stubborn, absolute refusal to ever surrender. And honestly, perhaps no player in history embodies the tiger more than Cristiano Ronaldo. He famously stated he wasn't the most naturally talented player in the world, but he worked harder than anyone else. He was just never satisfied with the status quo. Transformed under Sir Alex Ferguson's strict discipline in Manchester, he evolved from a spectacular showboating teenager into the most complete footballer on the planet. And he eventually reached peak greatness with a mind-boggling 450 goals in 438 appearances for Real Madrid. Now let's tie these stories together because this is brilliant. 80 million pounds. That was Ronaldo's world record transfer fee to Real Madrid in 2009. Do you remember Act 1? This monumental transfer was essentially a cosmic repayment of that deep, 50-year-old debt of generosity owed by Manchester United. Half a century after Santiago Bernabeu helped rebuild a broken English club out of nothing but goodwill, United sent them the greatest player of a generation in return. Talk about things coming full circle. And we see the modern tiger mentality in action on the grandest stage possible, with Kylian Mbappe in the 2022 World Cup final. Down 2-0 to Argentina with just 10 minutes left, staring at absolute defeat, Mbappe steps up and scores 2 goals in exactly 97 seconds. He literally resurrected France from the dead, willing a completely drained side into forcing extra time through nothing but sheer, unadulterated willpower. 12. That is the total number of World Cup goals Mbappe has scored in just 14 games. Let me repeat that. At just his second World Cup, that staggering figure perfectly matched the legendary, all-time record of Pelé. Unbelievable. And his mindset is perfectly captured in his quote right before the final. He said, "If I win, I'll be happy, but that's not why I'm here. I'm here to win the World Cup." Individual glory, like the Golden Boot he won for scoring a massive 8 goals in Qatar, meant absolutely nothing to him without the ultimate team victory. That completely explains his solemn, unsmiling expression on the podium while accepting his award. He embodied the tiger mentality to a T, complete refusal to accept anything less than ultimate victory. So, I'll leave you with this final thought to ponder. Does the beautiful game forge the character of its legends, or do the legends forge the character of the game? Think about that for a bit as you reflect on the incredible human dramas, tragedies, and mentalities that make this sport everything that it is. Thank you so much for joining me on The Explainer today, and keep learning.